Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Tia Haslam, and thank you for joining us in today's webinar. I would like to welcome you to our digital transformation workshop featuring marketing automation. This is a live session brought to you by Marketing Copilot and CRM Dynamics, one of the largest Microsoft Gold partner in Canada, 2019 Microsoft Impact Award winner, and a member of Microsoft Global Inner Circle Partners for Business Applications in 2019 and 2020. Now, before we begin our webinar, I would like to take you through some guidelines. To ensure that everyone can listen to the presentations, we have muted all the lines, and if you would like to ask a question, please use the chat or question function on your control panel, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. In today's digital transformation workshop, you will learn from two great industry experts on the journey into the great unknown when it comes to marketing automations. How the system can support your buyer's journey to improve sales and communications for your organizations with lead management. We are very excited today to have Marie Weiss, President, Founder of Marketing Copilot, and Rob Triggs, our VP Sales and Marketing for CRM Dynamics, presenting for us today. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and now I would like to invite Marie and Rob to begin their presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, Marie.
Hey, Rob. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
So, as Tia said, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself, and then Rob will do a quick introduction. I'm Marie Weiss. I'm the president and founder of Marketing Copilot. I've had quite a few years now in the tech sector, and in the last 10 doing a lot of work in the area of marketing automation. And my co-host today is
me. hey, we should have asked a trivia question at the beginning. Anyone that can name the city that was on that first slide? I wonder if anyone would get it wrong. Might be one of the most recognized cities in the world, I'd say. Hi, my name is Rob Triggs. I'm responsible for sales and marketing for CRM Dynamics, and I'm happy to be here with Marie to take you through digital marketing automation, and a journey into the unknown. So let's get started.
So I want to take a minute and talk about why we titled it Into the Great Unknown. I've been working with a lot of clients, and I know Rob has as well, who are struggling with the idea of marketing automation. It's a little bit like what people were going through about 15 years ago when they were deciding whether they needed CRMs in their organizations, and they were really trying to decide, what would a CRM do for my business? Is this a nice to have? Is this a must have? And we found over the last couple of years, people are feeling the same way about marketing automation. But the reason we think it's the great unknown is because unlike the CRM side of things, where you have a known name, a known contact, a known company that you're now entering into the system to track and measure from a sales perspective, the great unknown is this buyer is on a buyer journey and you don't know what they're doing. You don't know where they're at in the journey. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if they've even decided to shortlist you. We're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to talk about some findings from the latest research that CRM Dynamics has done, and then we're going to dig into how to solve for the unknown and improve lead management in your organization. Just a quick note, we know that there's a lot of people on the call today who are from nonprofit organizations and government, and so we're going to use a couple words interchangeably, buyer/user, because in some cases you might not consider someone a buyer, but they're a user of your services, and we'll interchange sales with communications because we are ultimately trying to get people to do something, whether that's to purchase or whether that's to communicate with them so they take action. That's what we mean by this. And the reason, again, that this is sort of viewed as the great unknown is because we don't always know what people are doing. We don't always know what's going on through their heads when they're thinking about a problem they want to solve, where they're searching, what they're looking at, what they're considering in this purchase/user/buyer journey. So we want to talk a little bit about that, how that's changed for our organizations today, and what we can do about it with marketing automation. So let's dig right into these unknowns. Let's talk about unknown number one, and I touched on it a little bit, and Rob, feel free to weigh in on this, but everybody is doing something online today. Whether they're getting ready to buy something because they're trying to solve a problem in their business, whether they're trying to solve a problem for themselves in their dealings with the government, maybe a consumer product, and they're going through this journey. And so the unknown we have is that this journey is happening. We know today that many people are investing in this because we see the rise in marketing automation, but 90% of companies just don't know how to get this journey under control. They don't know how to get lead management under control. They don't know how to communicate with their audience in the most effective way. And so this is one of the first unknowns. Would you agree with that, Rob?
Yeah, I think this is probably the most powerful slide, and I would draw everyone's attention to it if you're distracted right now. But all of us, all companies, whether you're trying to sell products or if you're in a not-for-profit space, you're servicing your members or you're servicing the people that you serve, whatever you're doing, you're trying to attract more customers or people, whatever it is you're trying to attract. What we find is companies are really struggling with trying to figure out how do we get more business or how do we attract more people. And at the heart of that is understanding what your typical buyer or user's journey is. And then once you understand what that is using the technology to help you make it more efficient. And that's what we're going to go through today. So this is very, very, probably the most important point, in my opinion, anyway.
So we know it's not a spending issue. We know that companies and major players are out there investing money in this stuff. Salesforce Venture is an investment arm that launched a $50 million consultant trailblazer fund, and they pump a lot of money into cloud consulting businesses and digital agencies because they know the problem exists. They know people need help. HubSpot, another pretty popular marketing automation tool, is up 37% in revenue, and that's both subscription revenue and professional services. So we know people are spending money. We know they're out there thinking, well, I maybe just need to go get a bunch of tools and I can solve the problem. It's not a spending problem. The money is getting spent. What we think is more about what's happening in the unknown number 2, and that's mapping your lead management process and aligning it with sales and communications process of the company. And I talk to people almost on a daily basis who sit down and say to me, you know, we bought the tools, we know what the mechanics are supposed to be. You get on social media, put some blog content out, throw some things out there on maybe pay-per-click. We know that the mechanics of it, but it's not doing what we want it to do. We're not getting the results we're looking for, and they're scratching their head and they're puzzled. And they don't quite know how to get this under control. So we know this is a big unknown for people. And we think that developing a really good content strategy as opposed to just a collection of digital tactics is what's actually going to drive results for a company or an organization. And this is the piece that's such a painful part for people. And this is what we want to spend some time talking on a little bit more later in the webinar. But why is this painful? Because people are still approaching marketing automation as a technology problem. They still think it's a series of tools that need to get bolted onto the CRM. But the problem that really needs to be solved, as Rob pointed out, and he said the most important point we can make, is how a buyer purchases something and makes a decision, or how a audience participant decides to interact, because their time and their attention is valuable. And it's that journey that they're going on, how they're solving that problem. And it's also not about what you want to tell them, it's about what they need to know. And so many companies are having a tough time getting this under control. Do you want to weigh in on that, Rob?
Yeah, I would just maybe give an example. I was at a client yesterday. They're looking at their options, and they're trying to decide which marketing automation platform to select. And we were showing two of them to them yesterday. And one of the things that I said to them is, you know what's more important than which one of the two you choose is to figure out what your buyer's journey is. And literally on this big giant whiteboard they have in their boardroom, literally just who are the different types of buyers and what process do they go through to decide what they're going to buy, and how do you attract more of them, things like that. And once you've mapped it all out on the whiteboard, then you go to the technology and set it up. So it was funny because when you say it's not really a technology decision, that was exactly what we said yesterday. Like you could pick either one of those two tools that we're showing you, they would do the same thing. The real thing is, do you understand the buyer's journey, and therefore how do you go about doing that? How do you understand your buyer's journey? Because it keeps changing. So just to share that with you, that was just yesterday.
And what I think is really interesting is that to back up what Rob just said and why this is such an unknown and a challenge for people is Salesforce did a quantitative study, and they searched, they did a study of 8,000 buyers in 16 countries, and 84% of the buyers polled said the buying experience outweighs the importance of capabilities, speed, feeds, even price. The buying experience that they go through, how they get educated, how they are helped through the understanding of how it's going to solve their problem. But 51% of buyers told Salesforce that vendors don't understand their needs and expectations. And this is pretty alarming.
You know what's funny, Maria? I was talking to a CEO of a company just the other day, and she was saying that sales weren't doing well. And I said, have you ever had anyone in your company pretend they're a customer and try to buy from your own company and report back on that experience? And she said, no, I've never done that. I said, well, try it. I think you're going to be very surprised the experience that that your customers have. And the secret,
absolutely,
right? And the secret to the success is in there, is in that experience.
And documenting it and understanding how you can then apply that in from a marketing perspective is the key. And companies who are really, really successful do this really, really well.
You ever notice how impatient people are too? Like, even think of yourself when you're gonna go buy something, and if you can't get your answer quickly, you move on to the next thing. Do you ever find yourself doing that? I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that comes to the unknown number 3, and that's a great segue. Is the majority of businesses today are losing leads on their website, and they don't even realize it. They can't manage the people who've taken the time to inquire, let alone map the buyer journey. And I think there's also a lot of misconceptions out there today, and I hope we'll have a chance to talk about it later on in the webinar, is that there's misconceptions about what the buyer wants to be able to do. So they offer things like free trial, free demo, and they don't realize that that's not the step the person's in, or the place that they are in when they're trying to figure something out. The information doesn't exist, and this is always we're gonna get to the secret shopper test that CRM Dynamics conducted in a second, but you know, I always come right out and ask the question, how many people actually put pricing on their website? So pricing is always the 4th most important question that goes through a buyer's mind. What is this? What can I do with this? How does it solve my problem? Can I afford it? And yet most companies don't put pricing on their website. So tell us a little bit about the recent research for CRM Dynamics when you have been conducting secret shopping exercises and what that looks like.
Here, I have an idea. Go back up the slide one more time. Just back up to one slide.
Okay, let's just see if we can.
If you know how to, if you don't.
There we go.
Okay, so I have a question for the audience. We didn't set up a proper poll, but here's a rhetorical question. You can just answer this question in your own mind, or write it down on a piece of paper. Or if you want, put the answer in the question thing in the GoToWebinar screen. So here's the question. So I'm sure every one of you on the line has a website, and you hope, maybe not expect, but you hope customers will find you and they will reach out to you through your website and say, hey, we just saw all the wonderful things you do and we want to buy what you have. How many of you, if that happens, feel you've got the right tools and processes in place to respond to those people effectively? So just a yes, I do, or a no, I don't is fine. And then just go in the question thing and say yes, or just say no. Because the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the study we've been doing. So if you go to the next slide, Marie. So we've been doing something we call the digital secret shopper. Oh, there you go. Look, Tia's really fast. She made the poll. So this is a bit of a different question. So do you have marketing automation in place? Yes or no? So if you just hit that, that would be great.
Right, so the answer is we have 60% yes and 40% no.
Okay, that's interesting. So if you go back to that other slide for a second. Okay, so what we've been doing is this, and I really want everyone to listen to this. Today, the buyer's journey is shifting away from dealing with you face-to-face to more online decision-making. So they're deciding what they're going to buy and who they're going to buy from by consuming digital assets. So that could be videos, that could be white papers, that could be website content, that could be whatever it is available electronically. And so once they've gone all through that, they whittle it down and they decide, okay, I'm going to reach out to this company because this one sounds like I might want to buy. So they reach out and either engage with you through your digital channels, your social pages, or even on your website. So what we decided to do about 4 years ago is said, let's see how companies do. Let's actually provide this secret shopper or this digital secret shopper test. Let's go to a whole bunch of companies' websites. Let's submit a lead, like a really good quality lead too, and let's see what happens. So that's what we did. And we've tested over 1,800 companies now. And out of the 1,800 companies, 54% have never responded to us. They just absolutely ignored it. Now think about this for a second. For those of you who are entrepreneurs or those of you who have been in the business world for a while, when you start your company or you work for a company, one of the first things you get is a telephone, or used to, a telephone. So when people call you, you can answer their inquiries. Could you imagine being in business and never answering your phone call, or never answering the phone calls? That's what this is like. So people are coming to your website and they're asking for things and you're ignoring them. And there's a whole host of reasons why we do that, but it's a real big problem. Now, in the test, what we do is we don't respond. So for those of you who do get back to us, we ignore you and we wait to see what happens. But the ones that did get back to us took more than an hour to respond. And the problem with that in the digital world, like I said earlier, is we expect things quickly. Like if I reached out to 2 companies right now because my furnace died and I need my furnace fixed, the first one that gets back to me is probably going to get my business. So speed is one variable that all of us can control, and people don't use it when it comes to inbound digital leads. And the last one is the ones we ignored. So 82% didn't try a second time. So of the ones that did get back to us, we ignored them, and then 84% of those gave up and didn't try again. So we've been doing the test over 4 years, and the numbers don't change. I would have expected the numbers to start to get better, but they're not. It's an absolute epidemic, which is really good, because what that means is each one of you that are on the phone right now, all you need to do is fix these 3 things, and you should be able to get an amazing increase in the quality and the outcome or conversion rate of the leads that you already are getting. And now, if you're not getting a lot of leads coming into your website, because that's what I typically hear, that's what we're going to talk about with Marie.
And I think one of the things that people always say to me is like, why is your website so important? You know, why is it that you want to focus on your website today? Well, the simple fact of the matter is that you've got places where you can participate online. That might be in social media, it might be in digital ads, it might be networking. There's places that are happening online and even offline where you're connecting with people. But the first thing we always do once we've met somebody is we go online to look them up on their website. And the difference between being in a what I call rented property, like LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or places where you're participating, versus a property you own, is that you can control the way you tell the story and the way you lead somebody through the story and support the buyer journey. You can control that. We can't control the terms and conditions on Facebook, as an example. We can't control how our brand gets presented in the template that Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn is providing, but we can control it on our website. And that's why our website is so important. It's our storefront. It's the receptionist. It's the place where people are going to say, this is where this person is going to give me the straight goods about their business. And what we're seeing as we go through this process is that marketing automation is what needs to be applied correctly before we know who the qualified lead is. It needs to be applied in this area where we don't necessarily know what's going on. Let's dig into that a little bit deeper. So the 3 simple knowns that we do know today is that buyer behavior is driving the sales process, the communications process, the user process, and companies lack a clearly defined strategy for harnessing this. And they're mismanaging leads. They're mismanaging. And when I say leads, that's interspersible with a subscriber, somebody who wants to communicate with your organization, somebody who wants to find out, but they're mismanaging that process. Maybe they don't understand how the person works through the process and they're not applying it to the tools correctly. Whatever the reason, it's a problem. And what I like to say, sure,
just
go
a quick
ahead.
comment if I could. So one of the things people say to me is, Rob, we don't get leads from our website. It doesn't happen. And what would you say to those people that are saying we just don't get leads from our website?
Well, my answer is always, how do you know you're not getting leads? And maybe you're not getting them because you haven't done anything to encourage it.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing. I think it's so I like to talk about consideration. So when a company has products and services they sell, so if there's 1,000, right, you almost have to estimate this. So if there's 1,000 people making a decision for what they sell right now, what percentage of those people do they believe are considering their company? So it's the consideration percentage, and no one can really answer that, right? But
right, and I think that's what this graphic is meant to do, is that your buyers or your audience are doing all these things, but what you actually know about it is just this small little piece at the end, and you actually only know about it once they've hounded you, called you, put their hand up. But you want to be here in this consideration phase. And there's a difference between, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, awareness, consideration, and conversion. Awareness is I need to be aware of what's going on. Consideration is I might actually shortlist you and choose you as the person I want to spend my time with, spend my money with, talk to. And then there's the piece where they're actually doing something and now you know about it. So it's this awareness and consideration phase in the middle that is causing marketers, salespeople, operations people, it's causing everybody a lot of grief. So let's take a minute right now and talk a little bit about what sales model you might be using. And again, you could intersperse the word communication model, but there's 3 types here that we've identified. There's maybe other ones too, but we think these are the most common ones that we see, what we call inbound lead generation, outbound business development, or direct marketing relationship selling. So inbound would mean that you've got a content plan that's got really good topics. You can drive traffic to conversion points. You can embrace that buyer journey. And there's focused online tactics that people are going through that you're tracking and measuring. So we call that inbound lead generation. We've got outbound business development. Maybe we're doing email blasting. Maybe we're going to trade shows. Maybe we've got paid ads. Maybe we're doing cold calling. But somehow we're trying to go out and find people. And then we've got the direct marketing relationship selling, where we're relying on a sales reps network or maybe an account manager's network. We've got the hunter-farmer model, and we're trying to go chase people. We call that a little bit more of the chasing model. So what I want you to do right now, we've created this quick little worksheet for you, and we're trying to make the webinar as interactive as possible, but take a minute and maybe just get a piece of paper and mimic this. Write down what sales model you're using, inbound, outbound, direct, and then think about that awareness, consideration, qualified for sales. And this is a bit of a worksheet, it's also a test. On the inbound lead gen, how do you know when a person is truly interested in learning more? We all use this button on our website, kind of makes me crazy. It's the paragraph of information and then it says learn more, because we expect that person to click there. We want them to learn more. But how do we know that they're interested in learning more? Are we following a reverse funnelization on Google Analytics to see where people are going to the pages on the site? Are we looking to see what is happening? Do we truly know when that person moves from awareness to really wanting to consider? And then when we've moved them to the consideration category, how do you know if you've been shortlisted? What buying signals does somebody give you? And is that something you're tracking and managing on your online presence, your web presence, your website today? And then what data and behavior do they have to demonstrate in order for you to decide they're qualified for sales? So as you work through this model of inbound lead gen, outbound biz dev, so what does an ideal prospect sound like? What can you point them to that's directly related to their problem? What do they have to have done before sales is going to actively get involved? Or are you just taking anybody who raises their hand? That's an expensive sales model, but it's one that people use. And then direct selling. What have they consumed? How do you qualify them? How do you document their problem or solution? So if you take a minute and you build this out, this chart is really important, and I'm going to explain in a minute why. But to start to solve for the unknown, you have to get this worksheet starting to work for you. And I'll explain why. The reason marketing automation matters today in that process is we really think it's the best way to support prospective customers in the way they want to buy. Both Rob and I have done a lot of marketing automation implementation projects over the last 5 years, and we've seen, things that are marketing tools. Maybe it's a glorified email platform where we can batch and blast emails out, but to really get at that, what they're doing online before they buy, how to find them, how to bring them back, that's where marketing automation really matters. And we think it's the best opportunity their business has today to understand that consideration category. And a lot of people will leap from awareness. So now I've done some advertising. I've tried to find people be aware, right to now I'm going to get the sales, and leap right to getting the salesperson engaged. But the buyer doesn't want to do that. And it's that category in the middle of consideration that marketing automation supports the best. And again, the way I like to tell people the difference is it's between knowing a customer and knowing a prospect. CRM tracks an opportunity once you know who they are. Marketing automation goes out to find them and manages them until they're ready to buy. And that's the core difference here. And I think it's really important when you're talking to your organizations and trying to get people on board with marketing automation that you help them understand that. So in our old technology model, or our old way of doing things, we had outbound activity, and we'd identify customers, we'd put them into the CRM, we'd make sure that they had a contact, and we might have targeted them where they were in the sales process, and we would turn them into a customer. And we sort of work our CRM in this way. And we would use this thing that I call the old sales funnel. We would potentially buy email lists, go to trade shows, buy AdWords, and I call it spray and pray. We're just pushing stuff out into the world to see if we can get any kind of interaction back in. And we hope that by bringing that action back in, we can start right away outbound activity, meaning that we start to chase people. Are you ready to buy yet? Are you ready to buy yet? Are you ready to buy yet? And we like to say one of the biggest friction points, if you want to stop a lead dead in its tracks on a form, the best thing to do is ask for a phone number and make it a mandatory field. And the reason I say that, if you think about it in your own life, I'm sure you've all been filling out a form because you were interested in a piece of content, you were trying to do something on a website, and the minute you ask for that phone number, it's like, I don't want anybody calling me. I'm not ready yet. I'm just here to do something, I'm trying to learn more. I'm trying to get at this piece of information. And so what we have done in the old sales model is then we start chasing the lead. And Rob, I'm sure you're with me on this point. What's the number one thing that marketing people hate the most is generating leads that they pass to sales that sales doesn't follow up on. And what's the number one thing that salespeople hate the most is all the crappy leads that that the marketing team gives them. Am I right, Rob?
Yeah, there's this chasm between those two things where sales says the leads are garbage and marketing says sales doesn't follow up. So they're both pointing at each other. And meanwhile, there's this big gap in the middle of lost opportunity. I've seen it just about in every company I've talked to.
So as a result of that, we think that the old outbound spray and pray and the way that we're putting somebody through the funnel isn't adapting to what's happening with buyer behavior and online today. So we've got these campaigns to drive interest, we get visitors, we get passive interest, and then we're chasing from a sales perspective. And we're hoping that enough stuff drops through the bottom of the funnel. But it's a high cost to sales, or it's a high cost to building an audience. It's a high cost to communication strategies. And so in this new technology model and the new way of looking at the world, we're hoping that inbound activity is happening when the buyers use the web, and we're getting them through the marketing automation process to do better lead scoring, web tracking, email marketing, social discovery. And so we can use marketing automation to qualify that lead before we pass it to sales, before we send it over to the CRM. And we can hopefully use marketing automation to go out and figure out what people are doing out there in the world online, and if we're getting shortlisted and if we're getting considered. And so I call it flipping the funnel. And I think it's really, really important today that we think about flipping the funnel, because the funnel really isn't a funnel anymore, it's a pyramid. And it starts by establishing your unique value proposition at the base of why someone should buy from you, but why should someone listen to you? What are you talking about that's even remotely interested to what they care about? And as a result of that, through social and influence marketing and blog content, we can start to gauge activity, we can start to gauge interest, we can start to build this community of people who might even be vaguely interested in what we have to talk about, what we have to say. And then if that content is really good in doing its job, people will share it. And they'll share topics relevant to buyers. And then once they do that, we can start to put them into a lead nurturing program and continuing to share that value-added content. And from there, depending on the content topics and how we think about this, we can qualify those leads. And then we can start a dialogue, and then we can pass to sales. And what we like to say is that today's funnel is not only flipped, but it's a series of micro yeses that we're trying to climb up this pyramid to get to that qualified lead. And people will often say, CEOs in particular will often say to me, oh my gosh, this seems like so much work. Are you kidding me? Why do I have to do this? And the simple answer is because it's what buyers are demanding. It's what people want. You need to establish your value before they'll share, like, refer, come back and click on something else. And so as a result, the new funnel and the inbound web is very much about ensuring that marketing is handling a good deal of the activity before it gets passed to sales. And that should be the goal of marketing automation, that you should be looking at marketing qualified leads around engagement, qualification, and then how can we hand them over to sales. And I think this is the most important issue that companies are struggling with, because they don't realize how much of the sales process needs to get moved into the marketing function. And so when we look at the old versus the new, it's this overlap now that's happening caused by buyer behavior, of ensuring that these activities look different because that's what the buyer wants. So if we were going to share with you the most important tactics that your organization would have to solve for the unknown and improve lead management, we would say flip the funnel, get your process and people alignment right between sales and marketing, and then apply the technology, and create a content strategy that speaks to what buyers need to know to shortlist you, not what you want to say about your products or services. And I think, Rob, you would agree that these things are for sure the most important things that we need to get right. And I think this idea of what moves into the consideration marketing part of the funnel as opposed to where it might have sat before is probably the biggest struggle people are having with marketing automation. Would you agree with that, Rob?
Yeah, I would. And they really don't have the numbers either to really know what's happening. They know they have a bunch of prospects their sales or marketing teams are trying to work with, but they really don't know how many, they don't know what stage they're at. They don't know how often one converts versus not converting. There's so many things they don't know that they don't know what to do. Because if you don't know the numbers or you don't know what's happening, how can you make a smart, educated decision on what you should do? So that's.
And I think what we see is that a lot of people have put in a first generation marketing automation system, usually to solve the email marketing problem, because they've got lists that they want to just keep sending content to. And so they either have a first generation system or, you know, that was the criteria that they used all along, was around email. But I think what people are struggling with today, and the biggest unknown, is that it needs to be so much more than that. It needs to be way more than what you're pushing out to the world via email. It's how you're capturing what's happening out there online to pull it back into your organization. And I think that's what we see customers struggling with the most. So we're going to talk really quickly about a quick start program. I want to talk really quickly about a quick start program that we have at Marketing Copilot. We've had a number of clients go through it in the last 6 months, and it's really been beneficial to helping solve some of this. So we have the Quick Start program that is a 4-week assessment and content strategy to map your marketing automation solution. And we basically go into a client's current marketing tools and environment so we can analyze traffic opportunities, content, conversion strategy, performance. And then we conduct a 3-hour working session to document buyer personas. So what does the buyer need to know? Who are they? How do they make a decision? And to build out messaging for that content map. And then we do a 2-week audit of the applicable marketing assets and what's going on in your digital space. So within 4 weeks, we present back a tactical plan, content and keyword strategy with website recommendations and a budget overview. So we think this plan is really important. You need the plan first, either before you buy the tool or before you can get the tool to work really well for you. And we have seen this Quick Start program really help guide people and get them on track and know the unknown, get into what's the unknown going to look like, and really be able to map it to their business. Rob, do you want to talk about the CRM Dynamics program, or do you want to move to?
Can I add something to this? So
yeah, absolutely.
So this is an important step. So we've sold many customers their CRM system and or their marketing automation system. And where I would say the customers that have had the most success is where they've really been able to map out their buyer journey and configure the tool to support that and to enable that even. And the ones that have not done well, the ones that have failed, I would even go as far as to say, are the ones that either didn't have the capability in-house to do that, or they didn't hire someone to come in and help them do that. And you can't just slap in a tool, a CRM and a marketing automation piece of software and hope that this magic's going to happen. It doesn't work that way. We've done it for years now. So if you have the in-house capability to map out your buyer journey and then set up the tool to support that, God bless you, you're all set. For those of you who are saying, I'm not sure if we have that, I think we've been asking Marie to create a program like this so that it would make it easier for our customers who don't have that capability and they don't have to break the bank to do it. So this is a great program. And just another testimonial for you, Marie, is we actually went through it ourselves about, what, a year and a half ago or a year ago now?
Yeah.
And so even we, the experts at this, so-called experts at this, on the technology side, needed some help mapping this out, and we did it, and we've seen a tremendous increase in the quality of the leads that we get and the conversion. So the next slide is all about, sorry, you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, the next slide is about us. So you need 2 things. You need a CRM system, a tool to track all this stuff and automate the process. You need a marketing automation system of some kind, and you need some help from Marie, or you have the in-house capability. So those are the 3 pieces you need. And it really is the old analogy of a 3-legged stool. So a 3-legged stool can stand because there's 3 legs. If you take one of those 3 legs out, the stool falls over. So you need a CRM system, you need a marketing automation platform, and you need this buyer journey mapping piece. So what we're offering is a simplified version of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM add-in. So if you already have Dynamics, we can add this in. If you have a competitive CRM system, you don't have to throw it away. You can just add in this Dynamics to manage the leads for your marketing team. And if you don't have anything, then we would obviously recommend Dynamics 365. So what this is a very simple add-in to manage the leads. It's focused on what we call a lead management blueprint. It's a blueprint to systematize the inbound leads coming in from your digital channels. That's what this is. And we're pricing it very competitively at $3,500. Okay, and then all you would need on top of this is access to Dynamics. You'd have to buy your licenses for Dynamics, which we could help you with that, or you buy them from whoever you buy your licenses from. And the last piece would, you'd have to select a marketing automation platform, and we can help you select the right one. And that's our offer.
So we wanted today to talk to people about what we're seeing as the gap, what the unknowns were, but we always get feedback that say, yeah, we know that, we know where the gaps are, but I want to understand how to fix it. And so that's where Rob and I about 6 months ago sat down and said, how could we offer something to help people fix these gaps, fix these problems in a really cost-effective, simple, fast way, because a lot of people say, I don't want to go through a 6-month strategy planning process. I want to figure out what my plan needs to look like in order to get the tools up and running and get out quickly into the world and test this stuff. The other thing that I would say about inbound marketing and digital marketing today, and particularly the use of marketing automation, is that it's a journey. There's a lot of testing that needs to happen, and there's a lot of iteration and tweaking to continue to improve results. And I used to make the joke that you wouldn't hire a salesperson for your business, put them in a room and not talk to them for a year. Nor should you think that just because you've built a website or sending out email on a monthly basis that that's it, it's done, set it, forget it. Today, the complexity of the world is such that we need to be continuing to tweak and fine tune these things to get the results that we want. So I want to pause for a minute, and I'm hoping we have some questions, and now would be a great time to put a question in the chat box if you have one. Here's contact information for both Rob and I if you want to follow up. But Tia, do we have some questions from participants this morning?
Yes, I do. I have a couple questions that just came through. Number one is, how do you minimize the drop-off during lead transitions between marketing and sales?
So how do you minimize the drop-off? Okay, if I'm understanding this person's question correctly, and please clarify it if I'm not, I'm going to just share a little simple trick about conversion rates. And this is what a lot of people don't like to hear, but this is the truth. The conversion rate of anything is 1%. So if I have 10,000 people coming to a website, as an example, on a monthly basis, 1% of those are actually going to follow through and interact and do stuff on my website. Of the ones that interact and do stuff on my website and perhaps become known to me through an email address, 1% of those will move on to the next step. So there's always going to be drop off because we're not going to hit 100% all the time. We're not even going to hit 50%. We're not even going to hit 25%. The rule of conversion in any industry around any conversion strategy is plus or minus 1%. If we can get it up to 5, that's pretty awesome, but most companies take a while to get there. And so I think we have to be clear on a couple of things. In our organizations, we have to be clear on those 3 categories of awareness and what kind of numbers we need in awareness, what we're actually offering to get to move them through to consideration and what those numbers need to be, and therefore what we need to move them through to conversion. And I used to do a workshop where I would model numbers for clients, and I would come right out and say, how much money do you have to make next year? How many leads does that represent? How many closed deals do you need to hit those numbers? If you need X number of closed deals, here's how many people you need on your list. Here's how much traffic you need on your site on a monthly basis. Here's all the activity you need to drive it. And you can reverse engineer those numbers. But if the question is, why do I, get 100 people on the site inquiring about something, but I only get 1 qualified lead? Well, because that's the rule of conversion. If the question was more around how do I ensure that there's no dropping the ball between marketing and sales, then that's why you need an integrated marketing automation and CRM platform, so that you can see all the people who inquired on the site on a monthly basis, and you can follow them right through to the conclusion of sales. And I know Rob can talk more about that, about the purpose of CRM, how CRM works, but you need to make sure that those 2 systems talk to each other. Because if they don't talk to each other, you won't know what leads did I drive last month, what keywords did I come in on, did they actually close and convert to sales? And that's the next step in this journey, which is hugely important. Do you want to comment on that, Rob?
Yeah, so I would ask everyone who's listening still that don't consider leads as this moment in time that happens. So companies come to you as a lead, you deal with it, you close it or you don't close it. You got to think about all of the potential and all the potential customers or the considerations. So attract as many as you possibly can to your business. And then I classify them as either ready now, so you give them to sales, or ready later, meaning you have to nurture them. So anytime you're trying to sell to somebody, You can't sell to somebody unless they're ready to buy and they want to pick you. You can't make someone buy from you. But what you can do is you can educate them and provide information and build a relationship with that person digitally, electronically through the nurture programs. And if you do that really, really well, for every 100 companies or customers that come to you every month, you'll increase the probability that they may buy from you in the future. So instead of thinking about lead comes in, I convert as many at a high percentage as I can, that's great. But the next thing is, how many people can I get who are in the market for what we do, or might be in the market for what we do in the future, and how do I nurture them so that they might buy from us in the future? And I'd like everyone to consider that.
And that's the beauty of marketing automation, because I recently worked with a client who showed me all their numbers, and they were in that very much, are they ready right now? And if they're not ready right now, well, then I'm done with it. I'll put them back on my newsletter list for the next little while. But they were actually sending out quotes via their system, and only less than 50% of the quotes was closing. So we suggested putting people into a marketing workflow, and therefore every 3 or 4 days they'd get a piece of value-added content that would ramp them up a little bit more. And of the 50% of quotes that weren't closing, we were actually able to get another 20% conversion rate based on using marketing automation and workflows, just as an example, rather than just putting them back on a newsletter list and hoping they'll come back. Because again, if you think about your own personal behavior in your life, it's, you know, Rob's right, you qualify people in 3 ways. I love your value proposition and I want it right now. I love your value proposition, but I'm not ready yet. I hate your value proposition and I never buy from you. And it's okay to have all 3 types of people on your list that fall into those 3 categories, because at any time they'll move. But you don't know when they'll move, and you don't know how they'll move. So the importance is that you're nurturing and giving them the opportunity. So maybe somebody didn't pull the trigger on the proposal because they went away on vacation. They didn't think they had enough information. They had to wait for their boss to get back from vacation. But now I'm giving them 3 more pieces, 5 more pieces of content over a 5-week period in a marketing automation workflow that allows me to remind them of the problem they really want to solve, rather than that proposal just being at the bottom of their inbox that they forget about, and 2 months later they still haven't pulled the trigger on it. So these are all the things we're trying, these are the unknowns that we're trying to manage for in not only the marketing process, but in a process that we would use around marketing automation. Tia, do we have any other questions?
Yes, I do. The second question would be, what are your buyers' age group? And then there's a couple of sub-questions underneath that. So the first one, I repeat, what are your buyers' age group, and how do you improve your marketing based on those groups? Some older age group prefer the older ways of communications.
I think I understand the question, but, and this is a question, I'm sorry to say this is a question that we get from older business owners all the time who say, you know, oh, nobody's coming to my website to buy like that. Nobody wants to interact with my company like that. They'll pick up the phone and call me if they want to buy from me. And it's, you know, the question Rob asked me earlier, well, you know, what do you say to people who say that? It's like, how do you know? So first and foremost, it's really important you document your buyer persona. Who are they? And how do they buy something? So it's very common that a 25-year-old will buy something the same way a 60-year-old will buy something. It depends on what's getting purchased, it depends on the problem that's getting solved, and it depends on the journey that they go through to make that decision. Is it a $50 purchase? Is it a $50,000 purchase? Of which there's a lot more parameters around that. But it doesn't really matter the age of the person, it's the process they need to go through. And I would argue that even if you're selling to an older demographic who maybe aren't used to using chat on a website, maybe they aren't used to receiving texts on stuff, those are the tactics. What doesn't change in that buyer journey is that they're trying to solve a problem, and they're trying to map their problem to the information you're providing in a self-serve way about whether it solves a problem. And so I don't think it's fair to say, well, if I'm 65, I'm not using these tools and techniques. I'm still communicating in a certain way, and even if I go to your website to look up the best way to contact you, when are the right hours to contact you, what's the process you're going to take me through to make this decision, that needs to be clearly laid out. And I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've gone onto a website, the user interface is not good, the content is confusing, the process that they need you to go through to find something is not great. And those problems need to be solved because people need to interact in a self-serve way with information, regardless of how old they are, what they're buying, or the journey they're going through. Would you agree with that, Rob?
I do 100%. We've had some customers come to us though and say, we're still going to do that. We'll do our electronic communication, our website, or social media, but we do have a segment of customers that are just never going to go to the website. They just won't. So for those, what we've said is you have to take an omni-channel approach. So the telephone, as far as I checked, the phones still work. Telephones still work. Less and less people use them, but they still work. So what we recommend to customers is do exactly what you just said, but also add in the capability to accept an inquiry in the way that your customer wants to reach out to you. So if that's by telephone, then you have to make sure that that channel is taken care of. And we often set up CRM to intake leads from phone calls, either manually or automated. So there's something to do. I'll give you a quick example. We had a company that was in the insolvency area. So people who are in some financial troubles, and they're reaching out trying to figure out what to do. So it's a highly sensitive thing. And so they were trying to figure out what to do. What we ended up doing is using telephone as one medium, but setting up a portal for them. So the portal was set up so people could come in privately and confidentially and ask questions, book meetings, things like that through this portal. So there's lots of ways that you can interact with your customers in the way that they want to interact with you. But it goes back to that three-legged stool though. You need all three pieces. You need the know-how with the buyer journey piece. You need the marketing automation tool to automate how you nurture and communicate with them. And then finally, you need that CRM tool to track, monitor, and measure what's going on.
Tia, do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have one last question. Can you share the top 3 marketing automation features that are most important for an organization?
Sure, the top features. So, you know, I always cringe a little bit when we get into the features and functions discussion, but at the end of the day, you know, features and functions are important. I think the very first thing you need to ask if you haven't yet implemented marketing automation, or even if you have, is who is using this tool day in and day out? Who's the person who's going to be in it, setting up campaigns, monitoring, tracking, applying the content strategy, applying the buyer personas into the tool? Because the very first thing I would look for in a tool is ease of use and whether or not it's easy to get things done. Because if you're doing it day in and day out in a tool, I think that ease of use and all of the ability to be able to do what you want to do are really important. Obviously, any tool is going to be highly contingent on an email address and how that email address gets tracked and managed. The other thing I love about tools today is they do a lot of the work for you. Just by entering a deal into the system that then you go to put into a list or manage from a campaign perspective, the more information that can be brought into the system without you having to do the work is awesome. I love the fact that Microsoft has purchased LinkedIn and they bring a lot of LinkedIn data in, which is really, really great as you're setting up information and marketing automation. You're starting to see a lot more detail around that person. You can go look them up on LinkedIn. You can go look them up in other social places. So I think the email address and how the data works around that email address is the second thing that I would say would be super important. And then the third feature that I would look for in a system is how the ability and the ease of tracking from where the lead came from or where the information came from right through to how it got handled and executed as won or lost on the sales side. So we used to do a lot of work for clients where we would trick out a solution for them using WordPress, Google Analytics, and email marketing tool like Constant Contact. And the biggest frustration I had as a marketer is at the end of the month, I would pull an Excel spreadsheet out of the back of WordPress, and I'd indicate all the leads that came in through the web. And then I toss it over the fence to sales to say, could you go through and track and tell me in the spreadsheet, is this a good lead, bad lead? Did it close? Is it open? What's going on with this lead? Well, guess how often those Excel spreadsheets got handed back? Very rarely. So as we evolved with marketing automation and we realized that tools were getting better, processes were getting better, everything was just starting to look better. The thing that we love as marketers is the ability to say, this pool of leads were generated based on this activity, this keyword, this campaign, and here's how they're performing in sales right now. So the ability to see that from start to finish is really, really important. And I would say those are the three things I would look for. Rob, what about you?
So we live this every day, selling the tool part of this equation, right? So I would say number one thing is to make sure that your marketing automation tool sits inside of your CRM tool, so that all of the interaction you're having with those potential customers is all sitting in your CRM database. So you can use that for future marketing and targeting. If you can't have one that's inside, have one that's integrated, has an integration to your CRM system, so that no matter what happens with your email marketing, your text messaging, your social posting, all those interactions you're having with potential customers, it's tracked, measured, monitored, so you can measure what's happening, you can make better decisions of what you should do. That's so important. To me, that's the most important thing. And then I think the second one, I just picked two. The second one, because we're almost out of time here, is the make sure that the marketing automation tool that you pick allows you to interact with your audience, your desired audience, in the way that they want to be interacted with. So email marketing doesn't work for everybody. In fact, a lot of us are tired of getting so many emails. And in Canada, we have Castle, and other parts of the world, there's other issues. So text messaging is another way. Not everybody likes that, but that's another way you can communicate. And the third one is the ability to post to social tools. I don't know about you, but my kids won't talk to me unless I post on Instagram or something these days. So we all have our preferences of how we would like to communicate and be communicated with. So make sure the marketing automation tool you select has multiple channels to communicate with your target audience. Those are the two big things that I think you should consider.
I think those are great points. Thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. I hope you've learned something. I hope it's helped you in some way. As always, Rob and I are available to take emails, phone calls. We'll respond, and we'd love to hear from you if you've got other questions or follow up. Tia, have I covered everything?
Yes, you have. Thank you so much, Rob and Marie. And I just want to add a couple of notes. I wanted to let all of you aware that the recorded versions from today's webinar will be available in our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our channel at CRM Dynamics CA to learn more about Microsoft Dynamics 365, get insights on other relevant D365 topics. You can also visit marketingcopilot.com or crmdynamics.com for more information. In addition to that, we have Rob and Marie's contact info up on your screen. And again, wanted to say thank you for Marie and Rob for joining us today, and for all the participants for taking the time to join in our webinar. And wish you all the best and have a Dynamics day.